It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us on the first show in the month of May. Lots going on in the country, whether it's insecurity, things around the presidency, and of course politics. The era of politicians all moving to the ruling party continues to be the case. And a lot of Nigerians are wondering what that means for the next general elections. But before we get into that, we're going to be starting off the show today talking about something that, caught the attention of Nigerians during the week. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, is threatening to shut down services in Nigeria after the FCCPC slammed it with a $290 million fine. This raises big questions. What exactly led to this fine? Is it about regulation and all of that? So we're going to try and see if we can answer some of these questions, because it's a heavy fine. And of course, Facebook, Instagram, and especially WhatsApp are an integral part of the ecosystem for Nigeria and our social media space. I'm joined here by Justice Ojieno. Thanks a lot for being here today.
It's my pleasure to join you.
So, I don't know, this seems like a lot of money when you hear $290 million as a fine. Take us a bit back to how we got here.
Okay, for me, I think that if we say it's a lot of money, maybe it's to you and I, and of course, the Nigerian government, it's not that much of money. And if you check Mark Zuckerberg's net worth too, it doesn't even hold a candle at all. So how we got here was that, of course, there was an investigation by the FCCPC and the Data Regulatory Organization in Nigeria. It was conducted over a period of more than 2 years, and they found out that the way Nigerians and Nigeria generally are being treated, and the way Meta is following the rules and regulations that are supposed to regulate their operation in Nigeria, that they were not really complying, especially when compared to the GDPR rules in the EU. So that is why they said that, pursuant to their investigation, they found that there were a lot of breaches by Meta, and to that extent, they now said that the fine came down to that particular amount. That amount was appealed by Meta to the Federal High Court, and they lost the appeal. So that is why they are now threatening, even though they still have more options to go upstairs to try to see whether they can get a better deal in our appellate courts. But they do not want to toe that line. And it looks like they want to stir the hornet's nest by maybe bringing some more people into the fray, the people that will be affected, the market generally, to try to put pressure on the government for the government to make a detour.
Yeah. It's very impressive that you mentioned that. I mean, as much as I said it's a heavy fine, we've seen a lot of these cases which Meta has lost over the years, especially within the EU. A lot of the European Union countries have had this stiff control of social media, because there's this constant debate: how do we regulate this space? But the FCCPC has said that Meta's exit from Nigeria does not shield the social media giant from liability. Whether they decide to leave or not, they must pay. How does this sort of judgment get enforced then?
That's just the challenge, is the enforcement junction.
Yes.
So I feel that, well, maybe the way they enforce international judgments, maybe when they eventually get the judgment in Nigeria, they may try to enforce it in the US or in any other country where Meta has assets. We can remember what happened to Nigeria and is it PIB now, or PB, the country that when the Nigerian government did a business with the Chinese, the Ogun State government in particular did a business with the Chinese people, and they decided to take it out on the federal government of Nigeria, where we parked our aeroplanes and our presidential jets, and they decided to enforce and try to seize our presidential jet. I think that may also be one of the modes for enforcement. But having said that, I must clearly and greatly advise the Nigerian government and Meta itself to come to the compromise table. These are two elephants that are slugging it out, and it is the common man at the end of the day, the SME, the small business people that rely on Facebook Meta that will eventually suffer. So I want to strongly advise that they should come to the round table. We shouldn't litigate it, because if everything is litigated, at the end of the day, there can only be one winner. But we should look for a way for it to be a win-win situation, compromise, so that the Nigerian common businessman that will eventually be affected is not adversely affected.
We're joined as well by our guest in Abuja, Ahmed Agbabiaka, who's a social commentator. And I want to just go to him now to just find out, your thoughts, especially on what this means for businesses across Nigeria, before we even get to all of the social media influencers and all of that. A lot of small businesses run their market space, basically, especially with Facebook and WhatsApp. We know WhatsApp has become for a lot of, whether it's delivery companies, the food industry, clothing, it's sort of a seamless medium for a lot of these companies now to transact business. What does this mean for them? If Meta actually goes through with this, do you think there can be a compromise as well?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ebuka. Well, I think from my knowledge of the situation, I think it is only Facebook, Meta, and Instagram that's affected. WhatsApp is excluded from the whole issue. So we're still going to have WhatsApp in place that is not affected. So, but I think this issue about having a separate kind of law or a separate kind of regulation, exploitative regulation by foreign investors, or especially by the Europeans and some other investors, expatriate also for Nigeria, I think different from what is practicable in the US and in Europe and all that. We also how Mark Zuckerberg and the tech giants are being grilled by the Senate and the Congress of the United States of America. It's almost a very tough situation whenever they had to face these people for breach of regulation or public good. So the situation should not be different from what is happening in Nigeria. Now, just like the other guest said there, the usual tactics is to incite the likely victims of a situation whereby the government goes through and when there's no compromise. So I think there's a need for the government to be firm. This happened some time ago between the government of Nigeria and Twitter a couple of years back. And I really say that I think Twitter actually, there was actually a lot of lessons there. The lack of compromise by the Nigerian government, and later, I think they reach a common ground. So, but the way it stands now, there's a need for the government, there's a need to evaluate how much seriousness we put into these things, into regulating some of these institutions, some of these organizations that investors that come into Nigeria. There shouldn't be a different set of regulation exploitatively from what is obtainable in other climes. So I think the government is right, but just like it is, a lot of people are going to be affected by this. The government knows this. These people know this. So that is why they are threatening. There is this constant talk about the judiciary in Nigeria. It's not reliable, it's all that. So they went to court because they felt that they have a case. So if you have not won in the High Court, you can still appeal. There's still room for appeal up to the level of the Supreme Court. So if they've not exploited all this and they've not called for a kind of roundtable discussion with the government to reach a compromise, just like they do elsewhere, and they are now calling for that they are going to exit Nigeria, knowing fully well what the impact is going to be on those that rely seriously, that make fortunes out of this platform, I think is uncalled for, and it's a wake-up call for the government of Nigeria to have a kind of backup plan for situations like this. Because at the end of the day, it is the citizens that suffer.
I mean, it's interesting to know that WhatsApp isn't affected, but of course, Instagram and Facebook are huge platforms as well. Besides even small businesses, like I said, the new influencer culture is a huge demographic for young people. And with the unemployment numbers in Nigeria, you can't take away what that does for the market. And I think I was reading earlier that there had been a fine as well in Texas of over $1 billion, which, as well as the EU, India, South Korea, France, and Australia, so many other countries. So Nigeria's case is not unique, and it's not even the highest fine that they'll be paying. But speaking of plenty money, still with you, Ahmed, before I come back into the studio, the EFCC has uncovered over 80 billion naira in the bank accounts of a recently sacked MD of a state-owned refinery. This is part of a wider probe into the alleged diversion of $3 billion meant for Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. These refineries have been in the news since I was born. It's working today, tomorrow they said it's not really working. How do we get out of this conundrum?
Well, I think it boils down to one thing, and it's about the fact that almost everybody, if given the chance, they would want to corner things, public funds to themselves and all that. It's quite unfortunate that we are in this kind of situation. The petroleum sector, as the major source of revenue for this country and our major exports, should not be in this kind of situation, should not be in this kind of mess, if I may. Because we, day in, day out, year in, year out, we've had issues with a scarcity of petroleum, and in most of the situations, most of the cases, the likely culprits or the likely solutions that everybody, all the stakeholders do prefer is the workability of our refineries. 4 of them, none has been working. If not for the fact that the private refineries, like the Dangote refineries, give them a run for their money, then we don't start having refineries coming on board, despite the fact that we have billions sank into this project with little or no result. So it's a good thing that at least 1 or 2 of it are working right now, but we still can't even ascertain the viability with what has happened now, with the kind of discovery that the EFCC has made. But one way I want to look at it is this, that people have said that it's the government of Padi and all that. You know, I'm not trying to defend the government, but this is the government fighting one of their own. Because whether we like it or not, the immediate past management or the outgoing management or the outgoing management of NNPC are an integral part of this government, the previous and this government. And if such a thing has happened and an institution of the government is taking this up without cover-up, I think we should encourage and also look into the fact that we need to see through to the end of this case. This is a very big issue, not because of the money that was taken, but because these are monies that were diverted from critical infrastructures that will have saved this country a lot years back. So we are getting this right now, at least that we are having competition from the private refineries and other investors that are coming in. But it's quite a sad situation, and the whole Nigerians, the whole Nigeria should stand up and see through to the end of this case.
All right, thank you, Ahmed. I'll come back to you, but I mean, Justice, it almost feels like we will never come out of this petroleum, oil sector, and corruption tag team that has basically put us where we are as a country today. And it feels like the more we talk about it, the worse it even gets. But let's wrap up today, because insecurity is also probably one of the biggest challenges we're facing in the country today. We heard about Mr. President, you know, he was going to Katsina to launch a few things. And people kept saying, are you going to pass through Benue at some point? You know, because Benue State has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. You know, the Middle Belt, whether it's Benue, Plateau, you know, we hear all of these stories. It doesn't mean that other parts of the country are not going through their own. The Southeast, the South-South, the Southwest, the Northeast continues to go through, and we hear stories about banditry. I saw some news the other day that 14 cows were killed in a farm. I don't know whether that means reprisals are coming. You know, it just makes you wonder, why does this feel so unfixable? Because these are people that we see. This is not some, you know, thing that is abstract. Why is it so hard to fix this insecurity thing, and why is it spreading as much as it is?
I think the shock value is almost gone. And we find ourselves in a situation where, unlike before 2010, where when we are having a news bulletin and on foreign news, we hear of explosions in Afghanistan and Iraq. This time it has come to our country, and unfortunately so. major reason why it is unfixable, if you leave me to my own opinion, after slicing and dicing it and looking at it from all possible angles, I feel that the political will is strongly not there. That's my own major diagnosis.
I hear this political will. What does it mean? Is it people in government protecting these people who do these things? Because we've heard in the past that there are people who might be sponsors who are connected in some way, which is why this can't be stopped.
But that's the reality. That has also made the news, that there are people in government generally, maybe in past governments, I may not be able to say about this government, that actually sponsored terrorism in this country. And we also have a situation where if we have people who are supposed to be in charge of security of lives and property in this country, and they are not delivering, Ebuka, if it's in a private establishment, in less than 3 months, if you have deliverables and you don't deliver, you lose your job. But in our own country, it looks like even security is perk of office. Even security is something that nepotism is what sustains it, and is not sustained by practically delivering on what the basic deliverables of that office is. And we still hear of people, we see our soldiers in the barracks. They look untaken care of. We see them, it trends on social media, where they are sent practically into dead zone with sticks and stones, while the people on the other side are armed to the teeth. So these are some of the things that we have to look into again. And the big stick should be wielded against persons who are holding offices, who are not delivering on such offices. So I think that as much as possible, if these are looked into, and the financing of terrorists too is looked into, a lot of results, a lot of good news will come to us as a country.
I think the one thing everybody always says is that Nigeria has so many low-hanging fruits. And, you know, for whatever you might think of the current president, people said, okay, he's been governor, he's been around the political scene for a long time, he should know some of these low-hanging fruits, you know. The security situation, I mean, it keeps going up and down. They will tell you, oh, we've reclaimed territory, we've done this, there are no more bombings in Abuja. But it goes beyond that from what we are seeing. Do you see this president, you know, do you see a move in any way from this president to sort of tackle this thing that's happening?
I think he has done his best so far. It's almost 2 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2 years in a couple of days' time. He has done his best. And I've not seen any sort of move in the goalpost. I've not seen any sort of progress in the right direction, because the numbers still remain. The alarming numbers of people that die still remain. You see the number of people that died in myriads in Plateau, in Benue State. So I feel that nothing has changed. I do not see this government being able to do better than past governments on the issue of terrorism.
Let me take you back to Abuja. Ahmed, I mean, we do have security chiefs. We have service chiefs, the chief of defense staff, army, navy. You know, most people in Nigerians don't even know their name anymore because we don't even hear from them. We don't seem to know what's happening. I mean, in a lot of other climes, there would be resignations or at least some sort of action. Do you see that? What do you think the service chiefs, or how liable are they in this?
Okay, so I think we need to appreciate the situation of the security or insecurity in this country before we even start talking about the resignation or the firing or hiring of somebody or not. So I think security goes beyond just service chiefs securing this country. The president has been commended on many grounds for assembling a very good security architecture, or for creating a good security architecture with everybody having their responsibilities. So it is unfair that with the kind of casualties, the gains, first of all, the gains made by the military, and now the kind of casualties the military is suffering, and we now want to shift, we now want to take the blames to either the military or the service chiefs or the ministers or those that are involved. I think we need to appreciate something. The situation is bad. The security situation is bad, but it was not as worse as it used to be. It's improving. Security as it stands is a moving target.
I don't think people in Benue would agree with you. Ahmed, I hear you, right? And nobody's saying the military is not doing something or the military is not losing personnel. Can you hear me? I don't think anybody disagrees with the fact that the military are not on ground and are not losing personnel, and Nigerians are very thankful for that. But when you say this, the casualties have reduced, I don't think people in Benue feel that way. This is something that's recurring. People are killed in churches, worshipping. People are killed on their farms. People in the northeast, in Maiduguri, there's still all of this happening. So, I mean, does it have to come to your doorstep to appreciate how bad this is?
Okay, so that brings me to the next line of thought, and it's about the fact that the coming on board of every stakeholder. There is a need to rejig this security architecture, not by advocating firing or hiring of somebody, but to bring in more people, to inculcate people. Just recently, the military started this advocacy, the military diplomacy advocacy in some villages, just to connect with the communities for intelligence. The greatest part or aspect of fighting this insecurity is not the guns. It's not at the point of confrontation or fighting, because most of these are guerrilla warfare. So it has to do with information, intelligence gathering from the communities. Ebuka, I want you to recall back when most of these incidents happen, and you see the governors responding. You will hear things like, we need state policing, we need community policing, meaning that there is a need for a serious engagement of communities and the civil society. This thing that the military is doing now, that they have started now, it should be the work of the civil society. Everybody should be on their toes to ensure that these things are done. I read in many places where there are diversionary arguments. Hey, they should sack the Minister of Defense, sack the NSA. These are not the issues. We are getting results, but it is still happening. Now, we have seen the back and forth from the community and counter argument from other stakeholders. We heard about what the senator, former governor of Edo, Adam Oshomole, at the Senate floor, his argument about the kind of people that are involved in this insecurity. I want you to also ask ourselves this question. We have seen clips on social media of these insurgents, those that are actually carrying the guns. Do they look like millionaires, despite the fact that they are collecting hundreds of millions in ransom? They are not. So they still look tattered, they still look unkempt, they are still in the bushes, and they are carrying weapons worth millions. So there are a lot that has to do with this, and I think it's not something that is going to be tackled at once or something that will be resolved at once. There is a need for the government's security architecture to be given this chance. The president has been praised or has been commended for giving a lot of allocation to the military or to the security, over 6.1 trillion in the current budget of 2025. That is unprecedented. So if we have such, then the president has done so much. And, you know, when people commend the president and say they castigate the minister or something, or the NSA or that, you see, these are people who draw out the plans, who draw out the plan and policy direction for the president to implement. So if the president is implementing that, and you are now saying his star people in the working arena, you know, for providing resources, because that is another serious aspect. The military are getting armament, they are getting the latest technology. Just today in Katsina, the president made mention of something like this. There is a need for surveillance, and he made statement about having the latest technology and surveillance in ensuring that they gather information. Some of these things might work, and they are going to work, but there is a need for the locals to be very much involved. And that has to do with
Ahmed. We need to go.
And state government level.
Thank you very much. Just quick response from you. 30 seconds. Please,
okay, for me, I think that Mr. Ahmed may not be getting the point exactly, with all due respect to him. 6.1 trillion naira, according to him, was apportioned to the military. We can remember that some amounts too was apportioned to the NNPC, but 80 billion is found in the account of one person. So what is being done? At some point, too, in this country, $2.1 billion was missing from the NSA, and the NSA was prosecuted for it. It's no longer about budgeting. Is this money getting to where it ought to get to? These are some of the things, too, that we have to check. So on the people at the top losing their jobs, yes, they have to be made an example of at some point. If they are made an example of, then they will know that if they do not deliver on the perks of their office, either by hook or crook, or by apportioning the money well, or by not stealing the money for weapon or for welfare into their own private pockets, they will now know that if they know that they will lose their job or heads will roll, they will do the right thing by the people.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you very much, Justice. Very contentious issue there because lives are particularly involved in this one, and Nigerians are very edgy and hoping that things start to look up. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Workers' Day was celebrated during the week. For a lot of people, it was just another public holiday to rest. But the significance of it should not be lost on us because the workforce in most countries, especially around the civil service, is what drives, how successful a country would be. And Nigeria is touted as one of the countries with the largest employable age-wise around the world. We have a lot of people in their young youth age, and the unemployment numbers are also very scary, even though we rejigged them a couple of years ago. And the one word that continues to jump out at a lot of people is unemployability. Most people don't agree that it should be a thing. Some people say yes. There's a reason why it exists and why Nigerians continue to describe a certain demographic that way. But I'm joined here now by Adeshola Professor to help us unpack this. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Vika.
Okay. What does being employable mean? Because you are of age, you've gone to school. What makes you now unemployable? Is that a thing?
Of course it is. I think that going to school and having degrees, it's not enough for you to fit into the world of work, as it were. So what you find out is people have acquired degrees, but not necessarily skill. And in the workplace, I mean, your degrees are only good bringing you in. The work itself needs you to be hands-on. So when you cannot do the work itself, then nobody wants to bring you on board. And I think that's where the problem really lies.
I mean, with the way the country looks now, and, we talk a lot about how a lot of young people are idle. Yes, the government says the unemployment rate is under 5% because, I mean, if you work for a certain number of hours in a week, you are considered employed, whether it's informal or not, So that's, of course, took the numbers down from, I think, about 33% at the time, down to about 3 point something. Those numbers might be debatable, but at the end of the day, it's not lost on us because we see the reality on the streets. I always tell people, when you drive out of your gates or your estate or wherever it is you live, how often do you see young people, especially maybe men, just standing around and sitting around, watching, doing nothing on a Tuesday morning? We see the reality of it. And, this talk about the need for skill acquisition continues to come up. Whose role is it? Is it government's job to equip young Nigerians? A lot of people are doing things on their own because you can't deny the fact that Nigerians are very entrepreneurial and all of that. But there's still a huge number of people who need to be captured, to be brought into this. Whose job is it?
I think it's not one person's job any longer. It's more like what we all should be responsible for. And by we, I would say that the people, right, the employers of labor, and of course the government. This is 2025. I mean, you can pick up skill online. You don't necessarily have to go to school to get yourself educated about how to code, how to write a script, and all of those things. One of the things that I would say is, yes, there is a breakdown in our system. It's quite systemic, right? For instance, people that would go to school will go to school to study some particular kind of courses, right? And they come out of school and they can't fit in because either there are not enough jobs for that course or it's underpaid, right? And then they want to find something else. You'd also find a set of people who didn't go to school, right? But perhaps would have been better off if they learned a vocational trade. But because we've glamorized some kind of roles, it doesn't seem to be like, if you're not a medical doctor, you're studying engineering, or you're studying architecture, you're not really fit in. And on the government side, I would say that one of the challenges we have currently is the quality of our curricula, right? If you go to the universities and the polytechnics, the curricula that we have today does not fit into what the world of work or the now of work needs. Post-COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of things has changed. Technology is shifting the skill set required for the work that we do today. But our schools are not necessarily equipping us for those things. So you find a lot of theory, but little or no practical. Yeah. For example, I would argue that maybe for roles like engineering and perhaps medicine or the medical value chain, you don't find all the other roles go for internships during the undergrad. So you come out of school, go NYC, go to do NYC, then you're getting into the job space for the first time. You are a rookie, as it were, not just in terms of what you know, because you've not done practical, but you're also a rookie in the workplace for the first time. So there's going to be a bit of misalignment, and that's always one of the challenges I have seen. I mean, I've sat on countless interview panels, and it's always a challenge.
Before we get to the interviews thing, something you mentioned that stuck out with me, because you talked about, people wanting to do certain things because
yes,
that's what makes you look a certain way. But even that is shifted now. We're in a culture where, with Generation Z or Gen Z, like we like to call them, the attraction to work is different now. Yeah. Work from home became very big after the pandemic. Influencing became big. Tech. And these are all things that you can do from the comfort of your home office or your bed. You're in Lagos, you're working with this IT firm in Los Angeles, you do your thing online and you get paid. So that's become sort of the thing. But a lot of people have said that what Africa is trying to model and what Nigeria should be modeling is a lot of what happened in Asia, where they had this mass population and the human capital was harnessed. So manufacturing became a thing, agriculture became a thing. We see it in China, India is picking up on that, Malaysia, all of these Asian tigers. What does that look like here? Because for the young Nigeria now, maybe aided by social media as well, when you're 23 and you see your fellow 23-year-old in Thailand driving a Bentley, you don't know how he got it. It becomes, okay, I need that as against going to be a factory worker. How do we start to have this mind shift? Because someone has to still manufacture. Someone still has to do agriculture. The skill acquisition, vocational skills, like you said, still needs to be done by certain people. But it just feels like there's a certain shift for what is seen as, cool when it comes to work.
I think that's quite...
Are we stuck?
It's quite multifaceted, if you ask me. So you go study how to make a leather bag, for instance. You went to vocational school or some vocational learning. But you also realize that the consumers are also still fixated on importing, right? You want to buy the made in abroad. So technically, you've learned these skill sets, but you don't really particularly have businesses. I would say this for a fact. Most of my friends that own businesses online on Instagram, for instance, they would have to glamorize the brand to sound and look a particular way to attract people to buy. Because you have to give this look and feel as though, so you see somewhere on the bio that has Lagos, New York, London.
Or they put luxury in their name.
If only that's because they've sold to customers in those locations, not because they have offices there, right? So that's the challenge. People don't see... You learn something, but you won't have an expectation of what would happen when you're done. There's that challenge. Then there's also the challenge of capital to start off. How many of our commercial banks are going to give you the capital to start up, this business when you learn? Now, the Polytechnic was trying to solve for some of this challenge. You would discover that the Polytechnic was particularly known for art skill training. And people would say, if you want to be an engineer, go to the Polytechnic. If you want to be a builder, go to the Polytechnic. But guess what? When they are done with their studies, they still get discriminated when you compare them with people that went to the university. So the dichotomy is always there. Now, why do I want to go to the Polytechnic? So this is the challenge. It's quite very systemic. And at the end of the day, I think a solution might be that when every of the players in the labor sector come to that agreement that we need to really remerge in this space, it would involve people, government, it would involve even the private sector as well. It would also involve, finance houses. And at the end of the day, I suppose that will probably be a step in the right direction. But until then, if it's not lucrative, why do I want to go waste my time? Yeah. Like you rightly said, I would rather be, I would jokingly say that right now, I heavy content creators because everything seems like light camera action, very glamorous. I would probably work 30 days to get a pay, but they seem to be making a lot of money. The other day, one particular content creator said he just bought one one fancy house in Lekki.
They're always buying houses.
They always buy houses.
But I also just want to talk about, the liability of the companies themselves. You talked about interviews there.
Yeah.
There's always, you see some job vacancies. The descriptions always look unrealistic for a lot of people. Then when you end up getting the job, you now find out that the pay doesn't make sense. How much more should companies be doing? You can't expect a 23-year-old and put a 5-year work experience behind that in a country where that's not possible. Or even if it's possible, it's probably 2 people out of 2,000 who have that. Are companies doing enough? And how much of a liability is it on companies? Because some companies do that where they employ you and they send you on training and all of that. Is this something that companies should take on more? Or can they even absorb the huge unemployment market even?
I think that as of today, the private sector is doing quite a lot in that space in terms of absorbing. But I also do agree with you that there is that challenge with regulating things. I mean, very spot on. Graduate trainee, you require 3 to 5 years experience. Where are they supposed to get that from? And on top of that very high demand is the very paltry, salary that you're going to be giving to them, which is not even in cognizance of the market reality. So that's a misalignment, and I quite agree. And that's why I said at the end of the day, all the players have to come to the table. I also do think that one of the things that perhaps might help the private sector in getting this right is, that has helped us thus far, is the fact that there is a scarcity of talent now. So I know of some very big brands that would not take anything shortfall of a second-class upper division graduates, but now they take 2-2. So the market is quite very tough to even get talent in the first place. So I know that there has been some adjustment to those very bogus requirements, but not to also say they still don't exist. In fact, I would jokingly say to my friends that you will see a company that will tell you in 10 paragraphs what they want you to do for them, but when it comes to remuneration, you see highly competitive, and it makes no sense, right? Again, we need to hold ourselves accountable. Maybe CIPM, which is the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management in Nigeria, would also step in more in creating awareness and things that we should demand of employers.
Just very quickly before we go, I know you're a HR expert. They don't like you people in the office, HR people. But on the final note,
they are beginning to like us now.
Before we go very quickly, you talked a lot about, I think the takeaway from me is that skill is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you have any skill, it's definitely marketable. 3 segments or sectors you think young people should sort of acquire skills in that are probably most marketable today, if any?
Definitely tech. Not necessarily that you have to code. Tech has a very robust value chain, right? The UI UX space. There are quite a number of things you can do in that space. And also because of the funding that is going into tech, right? So most companies would definitely want to attract tech talent. On another side would be agriculture. I think there's a lot in that space. Of course, national building, and you also want to consider the fact that most investments also go into that space, and we don't have a lot of players there, so it then make the competition not so very keen, and then you can play easily. Then lastly would be entrepreneurship, right? Whether you decide to work for a company or you want to work for yourself, I think that mindset is very critical, and it would show, right? It would show in how, for instance, I can tell you for free that even organizations are looking for talent that has an entrepreneurial mindset because they want to see that ownership. And if you have those things, I think you would have set yourself up for success.
Well, you heard it. Thank you very much, Adeshola. And of course, it's your birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you, Ebuka.
Thanks for spending your birthday with us and giving nuggets to Nigerians. Wish you the very best in the year.
Thank you so much, Ebuka. I had a great time with you.
Thank you. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We'll have a final segment very quickly. The Headies happened last weekend, and Nigerians stayed awake till about 2 a.m., I believe, watching Nigeria's most, prestigious music awards being held with a lot of talking points. I have here with me Kolade and Rex. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me start with you. What were your thoughts about the Headies this year? Social media had so much to say. If you slept off and woke up, you caught up with everything because everybody had an opinion. What did you think of it?
For me, I think the Headies this year was, far, below expectations. For a lot of reasons, you ask yourself, coming back to Nigeria, back to base, like they called it. There was so much that we expected, You would have learned a few things from, the US and then come back home, implement some of those things in terms of production. It was not nice, the fact that we could hear everything from backstage, on the internet. And maybe that was not the experience for the people who were at the venue, because I was there at some point. But I think there was a lot more.
Yeah.
There was a lot more.
To play devil's advocate a bit, we did have Ayo Animashaun here about 3 weeks ago, who's the CEO of HIP TV and, of course, the Headies. And he talked about one of the reasons why it was hard coming back, even after the first time it happened in America, and they kept saying, come back, come back. And it was about the difference in experience with producing. And he's basically said, whether I would like it or not, Nigeria is lagging behind when it comes to producing live events. And it's sort of this things we think are small technical things that Nigerians haven't yet seemed to grasp. Does that explain what happened? Because on the flip side, people will tell you, what other events happen here? We watch the AMVCAs every year and we see what happens. So how do you, sort of counter his argument?
Firstly, I have to give kudos to the Headies for bringing it back home. Right, for bringing it back to base. Yeah, we've been begging for it, and 2 years in a row, and then it is back. I mean, for someone like myself, who is also an award organizer, the Glimpse Awards, it takes a whole lot to put up an award event. However, of course, some lapses, right? Just as you rightly said, we could hear people from the backstage, people that were presenting our award at the point they were on stage, they didn't know what to do, right? So I believe they have all the resources, the manpower to put on a fantastic show. I mean, Headies are 17 years, right? And no one will expect a 17-year-old child to still be crawling, right? So the expectations for Headies is usually high, and I think for this year they didn't meet up to that expectation. So I believe there are rooms for improvement.
And I think one of the biggest moments on the day, I mean, there was the Odumodu situation where he refused to leave. Like you said, some presenters were still talking. The video would cut them off. Those were, but I think Shadi Poppy's own was quite the talking points. There was no trophy to present, and I think he tweeted later, "If you not see me next year" or something along those lines. Exactly. So most people said, even if you forgive the technical side of things, how do you not have a trophy? And I feel like for a lot of people, that sort of encapsulated the evening. Do you agree?
I totally agree with that. Beyond that as well, also you move into mispronunciation of names. I remember, Taves was being called Taves,
But that's a presenter now.
That's a presenter, And then you have a couple of other issues where you're not sure of what you're doing, or information is not properly passed. I think, the production team, they need to go back because, like you rightly said, Ayo Animashaun spoke about the fact that this year we're having two. So, yes.
So there's still one more at the end of the year.
Yes, there's still one more at the end of the year. So I think some of the mistakes, post-mortem is very important. They need to sit back, look at it, and look at where they got it wrong and how they can improve. Because, again, we need to begin to tell our stories right as Africans. If, for example, we tell them or we portray this is what it looks like doing things, back home, we're not going to attract the kind of investment and the kind of, engagement that we're supposed to attract.
But I mean, let's be honest. A lot of our music awards have started and faded. There has to be something to be said for the fact that 17 editions, we've seen, let me not mention names, but a lot of them have started and stopped. Some will have hiccups, they will come back, they will go again. Isn't there something to be said, first of all, for the consistency? And then I'll come to you about the fact that a lot of the winners, most people didn't necessarily think they were controversial. Most people felt the winners were deserved. Right. So what did you think about, first of all, the consistency of it?
I mean, that's why I had to, first of all, give kudos to them. Because you can't mention Africa and world and not put Headies first, right? For even any new award platform coming up, Headies is usually the benchmark, right? They are the big boys you look at, to create yours, right? So for the consistency and for 17 long years, right, they deserve, kudos, right? I believe what Nigerians and Africans are just echoing for is better improvement, better production, more quality.
People really stayed up to watch. I was very impressed with that.
That is because, of course, for 2 years, people starved for this. They were yearning for it. And when it finally came, people decided to come all out for them. right? And I want to use this opportunity to also say, you know, the bigger boys as well, to the top 3 or the top 4, right? It's only one of them that, you know, that turned up for it. And
they say it's usually just one a year, so we got one last year, we got one this year.
You know, we need to see more of their presence.
Yes, very
right?
true.
Because,
I completely agree.
You know, if you look at, let's say, Grammys and Oscars, and you see some of them even going there very early, helping them arrange chairs and all of that, right? So we need to get them turning up for more of our award. And you can't write off Headies, right, for the consistency and for the quality of work that I've been doing for the long 17 years.
Yeah.
So something positive, actually.
Like I said, a lot of the winners were not particularly that controversial.
Yeah.
One that's always a big one is Next Rated. Do you agree with the winner of the Modu? Secondly, okay, maybe there was probably one that people were like, we're just giving our in-law this thing, the East African Award.
Yes.
But what did you think about the winners in general?
I think Nigerians need to first realize that the Headies has 2 categories. You know, there's the voting and the one that's also non-voting as well. Yeah. People need to realize that you have that. You need to know. Once you recognize that this category is non-voting, then you know that it's selected, you know, by the jury. And then when you go straight to the other category that is actually the voting, the fans decide who wins. And the minute we're clear with that, then we'll understand that award shows cannot please everybody.
Yep.
It's based on how your fans react. So if your fans react to this award show and they vote as much as they're supposed to vote, you're good to go. I mean, I can tell you for a fact a number of categories that I wanted someone else to win. I look at the best Afrobeat album, you know. You look at his over, you know, Work of Art. For me, I feel like Work of Art was a better album in terms of acceptance, in terms of, you know, what the album did. I mean, they were both sophomore albums, by the way. So you look at the mindset and the creation process and also the unveiling plans and everything. You look at all of these things and what it means to the careers of this artist. It's important for you to put it on the table. But again, it's a voting category. So what else? So you really cannot please everybody. You just have to realize that as a talent, ensure you push the awards when it comes. I'm sure when they get Grammy nominations, like you rightly said, they don't take it the same way. Everybody goes out, they push it as much as they want to push it, they talk about it, and they get the results.
Yeah. One thing I think I saw a lot of people talk about on Twitter especially was the fact that the Nigerian music industry is so heavily male-dominated.
Yeah.
Unlike what you see in America.
Yeah.
The women almost rule in America.
Yes, true.
Or at least there's a proper balance.
Yes.
Here, it was almost a night of men. I mean, you saw King Madi here. It was a few moments where women sort of sparked. But is that our reality?
Well, so for this year's Headies, right, I would say the female inclusion at the moment is commendable. However, there's still a large gap, and then there are rooms for improvement. Just as you have rightly said, you know, for the moment, and even in terms of the performance, King Madi seems to be the only female you know, that performed, which I feel there ought to have been a balance, right? Maybe 3 for 3, you know, 3 male, 3 females, right? Something like that, or 2 for 2, you know, to add more inclusion, you know, to the female talent, right? And I think even the overall categories, there still has to be room for female, you know, inclusivity, right? To recognize emerging and established female talent.
Yeah. Maybe we're going to see it, I mean, because these awards were for 23-24, I believe.
Yes.
So the next one will be for 24-25, which is when we know that the women maybe made it a top 6 at this moment because they really showed themselves. So maybe we're looking forward to the one that's going to happen at the end of the year. Very quickly now to 2 of you, what do you want to see in the next edition? Very quickly, one thing you want to see differently.
I think better production. It's important that we put that right there, and people need to understand better production, better you know, work being done in terms of publicizing the Headies in the right direction and telling our stories right. Because again, when that Afrobeat to the world era, even despite a lot of people who claim that that is fading off, you know, but it's important to note it. The stories we tell today, whether via award shows or whether, you know, via music that we put out, represents us in a big way. A lot of people were streaming the Headies, and if, you know, issues like that show up at the Headies, what you find is people feel like, oh, Nigeria is not ready for business.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, so one thing that for us at Glimpse Award is working is recognizing people behind the music, especially for the females, right? And it is something that I would love for Headies to adopt, right? Not just recognizing the stars making the music happen, because it takes a whole community to make music, right? The female behind Of course, kudos to director Pink, right, for winning music video of the year, right? But we need more to, to see something more of that, right? More of that at the Headies, and they should not be afraid, to dare new things, right? Because I saw that they were trying to play it safe, keep it safe, more innovation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Just to wrap it up, I'm picking back off of when Ayo Animashaun was here. He talked a lot about sponsorship and money as being one of the reasons why a lot of the other awards have faded. A lot of the awards we grew up watching have all gone, and even he was one of the reasons why he also runs for America. And the city where he was hosting it in America was also funding, but you wouldn't see that here. So I guess I know Nigeria is going through it, but there needs to be a little more attention. The Grammys are very expensive. You need money to put up a show like that. So I guess these brands should probably pay more attention to what's happening.
But then, Ebuka, remember we had likes of so many award shows even far back as the 2008, 9s, and, people stayed up to really look at production. So as we're growing, we need to be able to move
with the times as well. Thank you very much, Rex. Thank you very much, Kolade. We're looking forward to the next edition, and hopefully Afrobeats to the World still stays real. Like I always say, you can follow us on social media. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday.